All right, so welcome to the first local health department webinar of the Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs project by the New York State Department of Health. So today's agenda, we are starting off with a reintroduction of the regional support centers of this project. For our local health department partners, we had a introduction webinar back January 13th. Which I know seems a long time ago. So we are going to reintroduce ourselves to start. Take any questions you have about the project, then keep going to talk to our family liaisons about how they have connected with families during this public health crisis that we're experiencing. Then we have our featured guest speaker from Include New York City, who's going to give about a 25-minute presentation about Include New York's experience on connecting with families during COVID-19. And then we are going to open up the floor to questions, comments, and also have a brainstorming session. So if any local health department has had a great experience connecting with a family of children or youth with special health care needs during this crisis, wants to share, to provide tips or strategies for connecting with families to other local health departments, that's great. So we will go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint. I will pull it up for everyone. Okay, so this is the first local health department webinar of the Children with Special Health Care Needs project. And it's a reintroduction for our local health department partners. So this grant started back in October 1st, 2019, and we run through next September, 2021. We are funded by the New York State Department of Health, and our mission is to positively impact the lives of children and youth with special health care needs and their families by assisting you all, local health departments, in guiding families to needed and appropriate services. So just to clarify, because I know we all use a lot of different acronyms, this project uses CYSHCN. And how do we define that? We define that as birth through 21 years old, having illnesses or conditions for which one needs extra healthcare and support services. And even though it says healthcare, we also cover developmental, emotional, and learning needs, in addition to the possibly traditional way of looking at healthcare, which includes medical and physical needs. So we cover the whole spectrum in this project. So developmental, emotional, intellectual, learning, medical, physical, and other needs. And this is including but not limited to asthma, ADHD, ASD, cancer, cerebral palsy, depression, speech delay, and the list goes on, but we really try to include everyone in this project. And who runs this project? We are the 3 New York State University Centers for Developmental Disabilities. For this project, we're known as Regional Support Centers, so RSC. You might have gotten an email from a project assistant at your assigned RSC asking to connect. So just remember that acronym if you hear that again. And we have 3 goals: to provide technical assistance to local health departments, to develop and maintain a resource directory, and to host discussion groups and interviews with parents and self-advocates to understand their needs and experiences in New York State. And we have one or more family liaisons on each, at each RSC to ensure that we have a family perspective on all activities. So the first goal, which is to support all of you, just a little reintroduction about how we go about technical assistance. We start with introductory calls. So if you get a request from a project assistant or someone at an RSC asking to meet over the phone or Zoom, that's what it's about, to just get to know each other. And we request that you fill out a needs assessment so we can tailor your technical assistance to the needs of your local health department. We want to know what you currently offer and what you hope to offer to families of children and youth with special health care needs. And then we will develop an individual technical assistance plan moving forward. And each RSC We'll schedule bi-monthly calls with you to ensure that we carry it out throughout the work plan. So, goal number 2, develop and maintain a resource directory for children and youth with special health care needs, their families, providers, and caregivers. So if you know of a community-based organization that you would like to include in our resource directory, you can email one of the project managers that are listed at the end of this PowerPoint, and we can send the PowerPoint out to all LHDs. But we are in the process of collecting and formatting the resources, so we have these PDFs developed to send to you all. A resource directory to look at that you might be interested is the New York State Multiple Systems Navigator. And there is actually a webinar on their website about how to use their navigator, so that might help you assist families while we develop this resource directory. Goal number 3 of this project is to engage families, parents of children and youth with special health care needs, and self-advocates ages 18 to 21 in individual discussion groups and individual phone interviews. And we have done 39 interviews to date, 35 discussion groups to date. We have covered English-speaking families, Spanish-speaking families, and we are hopefully going to create some Mandarin-speaking groups. So we cover a diverse group of people across New York State. Initial findings from these discussions will be discussed in the family forums that you have or will get an invitation to in the next coming weeks. And just so you know which RSC covers where, the University of Rochester is on the left-hand side of my screen, covering many counties. Westchester Institute of Human Development is on the right, and Einstein Montefiore, we cover New York City and Long Island. So just to quickly go through who we are, the Rose F. Kennedy you said at Einstein Montefiore is led by Dr. Karen Bonnock and Joanne Siegel. My name is Rachel Passmore. I'm the project manager at Einstein Montefiore. William Lopez is our project consultant. We have Miriam Franco and Marcel Pachter as our family specialists, and Shaniqua McKenzie as our project administrator. The Strong Center at University of Rochester, Dr. Susan Hetherington is the director, Sabrina Smith is the project manager, Mark Prinz is the community liaison, Terry Welch is our curriculum consultant, Jen Ward is our evaluation specialist, and Mark Williams provides IT support. Westchester Institute for Human Development, Dr. Patricia Patrick is the director, Dr. Jenna Laquia is the project manager, Katie Myron is the project coordinator. Susan Berlazzi and Jeannie Hampton-Rasucci are the family liaisons, and Angel Morales is the project assistant. So if you want to get any of our contact information, if you have a particular question for an RSC or a staff member, feel free to send us a message and through the chat box, or from we will provide the project manager email addresses at the end of this PowerPoint. Oh, and actually we have come to the end of this PowerPoint. So here we are. My contact information is here, along with Sabrina Smith and Jenna Laquia. The New York State Department of Health contact information. So just so you know, Natalie DeLong is our main contact at the New York State Department of Health. She's the contract manager, and Mari Sepowski and Christina Costa-Daly are also contract managers we work with. All right, so now, well, actually, let me pause. That was a lot of talking. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask right now? We could take one or two if any LHD has a question you would like to ask. You could put it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and just ask it about the project if you have any questions. All right, I don't think or do we have a, do we have a chat box question? Let's see. Let me just check really quick. Okay. Can these slides be obtained somewhere, or can you send them after the meeting? Yes, we will send them after the meeting. Is there going to be a statewide children and youth with special health care needs resource guide? And anyone else from the RSCs, feel free to chime in. But to answer that question, we are making county-focused resource guides that will be compiled into a statewide guide. I don't know if the DOH, anyone on the call wants to comment, or anyone from our resource directory team wants to further comment on that. All right, well then I will keep going. And we will of course keep you updated once we have that resource directory set and can distribute it to you all. Okay, so now we are going to move on to how we ensure family perspectives on this project is by having family liaisons. So these are members of our community, so parents of children youth with special health care needs, or siblings of parents of children or youth with special health care needs. So I'm just going to ask a few questions to Marcel from the Einstein RSC and Mark to the Rochester RSC, and they can speak to how they've worked so far on this project. So Marcel or Mark, whoever wants to start, to share with the group, what parent connection strategies have you learned from this project, given the public health crisis we're going through? And what would you suggest for LHDs to connect with families?
I would say our best strategy has been connecting with local organizations in the different counties that support children and youth with special health care needs, and really having them kind of point us in the direction of families who are willing to have conversations. Additionally, when we've made those connections with families, families tend to know other families that are willing to join in as well, and that's been a great help to us in connecting.
So as a parent, from my personal experience, I had difficulties and in how to get my child evaluation done. And first of all, parents are a bit overwhelmed with understanding the system. And I know through my own experience as a mom and also as a professional, after years of experience working in health education and healthcare with the Latino Hispanic community, that there is no way that one person is going to know how to navigate the whole system. I think having a bank of resources and those parents being able to connect with each other, with other parents, is very helpful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so as you mentioned, Marcel, you are bilingual. Actually, you speak 5 languages, I've heard, so it's very impressive. And what would you suggest for local health departments who want to connect with non-English speaking families? Do you have any suggestions of, how you've connected with families to engage with them in discussions and interviews in this project? Anything you would want to elaborate on for local health departments?
Yeah, I think, Rachel, that essentially from my personal experience, what I would like is the local health department to understand from my point of view how to give a general advice that will not only help me, but will help other parents who are taking care of children with special needs. I truly think that it's important for maybe local health departments to have a bank of resources of family support groups, because I believe parents learn a lot from other parents just by sharing personal experience. Sometimes you don't know about a resource of services, but then you join, for example, a parent support group like me. I was in an informational parenting support group in a Latino and Hispanic community right after my introduction, and I shared what I was struggling with. A parent said, "Hey, I have something I would like to share with you." And I was thinking, wow, I did know about the place. She recommended, and it was because a parent told me about it. And as soon as I heard about this place, I looked it up. I called right away to the right number, talked with the right department. I got the date for Mark, my son, and get evaluated. Boom, it happens. So it was wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing, Marcel. Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just to piggyback on Marcel's insight, I would have to say that one of our most meaningful groups, and a majority of the groups, we would find that the parents would start sharing resources kind of organically in the conversations that we have. And, you know, to the point of Marcel, they would bring up specific people to call and give good information on who to call, when to call, what the right phone number was versus the general number. So yeah, parents being able to connect with each other, I think, has been invaluable, as we've seen in our groups.
We also talk all the time, I have to say, with Miriam Franco, that she's the other family specialist, very important in our team. I have to say that I will never have known of that place on my own if it weren't for the parents who shared that resource. So my point is that families learn from other families, and parents that already had experience with the system, that are navigating the system fluently, and they had learned from services and resources and support from other families. And I think that I would like to say that maybe having some more informational support groups that LHDs can link parents to, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your perspectives, Marcel and Mark, and we'll open up the floor for questions for Marcel and Mark after Include's presentation, and so thanks again for sharing. So now we are going to move on to Include New York City, our featured guest speaker. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Stephanie Tong will share her screen and begin her presentation. So welcome, Stephanie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi guys, thank you for having me. Again, as Rachel mentioned, my name is Stephanie. I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen and give a quick introduction of myself as well as Include NYC. All right, let me just get into my presentation mode really quick. One second, guys. I think I'm gonna have to put in presentation mode and then share. So again, I'm Stephanie. I'm from Include NYC. I am the Director of Parent and Family Engagement, Early Childhood. And who are we, right? So we're going to talk about virtual engagement with families today. And we are an early childhood and school age family. I'm sorry, guys, can you see the screen to my right? I'm going to stop this video. Second. There we go. Family and Community Engagement Center for all boroughs in New York City. We are a leading source of training and information for young people ages 0 to 26 with known or suspected disabilities, their parents and professionals who support them. We were founded in 1983 by actually parents who were seeking resources and really wanted to support the community. And so we grew out from that. And we believe that every young person should be fully included in school, in the workforce, and in the community. And we should have access to resources, services, and supports to succeed. And just a little infographic of how many people are reached in 2019, who we've served, some of our top workshop and helpline topics. which will be interesting to hear a little bit about later as I talk about, you know, what it looked like in 2019 versus what it looked like in 2020. How do we reach people? We reach people through our helpline, which is through the phone and previously was in person. We are also currently providing workshops through Zoom, Facebook Live, and Instagram. And we also, you know, directly work with families, but we also have youth programs that directly work with youth with disabilities. And through our website, you'll find resources, tip sheets, timely updates on guidance and policy, as well as our calendar of events. All right, so let's get started. So as I go through the presentation, I just want to qualitatively go over what we've done since mid-March and, you know, in the beginning of COVID and when we went remote. And then I'll go over some data points to kind of show you guys what, you know, in comparison to 2019 and 2020, what are some of the differences that we've seen. So as you can imagine, we've pivoted and increased our virtual presence exponentially. Some of the main platforms that we use are Zoom. We also use Facebook Live and Instagram Live to reach out to our families. During the peak of COVID, and we continue to do, we've increased our resources through emails. We typically had a weekly email that we would share out articles or different resources externally about special education and disabilities, but now we've also increased to where we send out a weekly email, which we internally call the Monday email. And these are really COVID specific resources. A lot of them will point back to policy that we're sharing out or tip sheets that we've recently developed or an online webinar that we might be hosting so that families can easily get connected to resources via their email. We've also worked really hard to be relevant with tip sheets on remote learning, remote evaluations, different things that really feel relevant for families right now. And the last thing that I've already touched on is just having timely updates. I'm sure as you guys all have experienced, there's lots of guidance and policies that are coming out. And so we do our best to try to digest it and put it in a way that feels manageable for families to keep them up to date. And something that our families have shared with us throughout this process is how important it's been for them that when they call, we're picking up the phone. You know, families are really struggling with, you know, not being able to go to places in person and get answers. And when they've called, sometimes the organizations or the institutions they're reaching out to, they're not available by phone. So for us to be able to answer their calls and support them through what some next steps could be, what are some emails that they could use to reach out to people has been really helpful for families. We've also expanded our focus. So we continue to focus on these topics. So our core is supporting parents in entering special education systems or service systems, or once they're in the systems, advocating for themselves, being aware of their rights and services as they navigate those services in the education, as well as the public education system and private education system. But something that we've expanded more on is providing behavioral workshops. Families are at home with their kids and really wanting tips and tricks on how to support their child's behavior. You know, mask wearing is something that has been really important to support children with special needs. So providing a mask wearing workshop, providing social emotional wellness workshops, some other things that we're going to be hosting in the future are Zoom tutorials in English and Spanish, remote evaluations and how they can actually be beneficial during this time. These are all workshops that are upcoming. Also something that we previously offered, which is recorded if you guys are interested. A lot of these are recorded on our and available on our website, is a sleep workshop. So maybe not something we would have typically done in the past, but just seeing some of the challenges that families are experiencing. You know, we really wanted to try to meet those needs, and it's been really beneficial to have a diverse team and using some of our team expertise to conduct some of these workshops, as some of them have ABA experience, they might have been special education teachers in the past. And of course, we seek out guests who have expertise that we don't have. And I apologize if there's any questions. I won't be able to see them till the end as I'm in presentation mode. So I'll definitely, if there are any questions, get to it at the end of the presentation. Something we've also pivoted is the length of our workshops. You know, some of our workshops were 2 hours long or maybe 3 hours long. We are now shortening our workshops to be 1 hour. Just being in consideration, many of our families are home with their kids. They may be in busy households. So thinking about the availability and attention span that families can focus. If we have a workshop that is, you know, longer than 2 hours and just has really valuable information that we can't shorten, we try to make it a multi-day one. You may lose some parents from day 1 to day 2, but really just trying to be considerate of, you know, how much we can focus in these times. Something we've been able to expand, a benefit of being remote, is we've been able to expand our language interpretation. So when we've done Zoom, we've been able to have a language interpreter simultaneously interpreting while we have that workshop going. We've also been able to expand our reach. We're not limited by geography anymore, and so we've seen that families from all different boroughs are able to join. And the last piece that we've pivoted is we previously had a paper evaluation, which we now, so for example, when we used to have workshops, it was a paper evaluation. We've now moved that to a poll that a 3-question poll at the end of the Zoom presentation. We've decreased the amount of questions, right? Because it's a quick poll. I previously had planned to show you the poll. I realized because I'm a part of this Zoom meeting, I can't bring up the Zoom poll, but what I can share with you guys is the steps that you could take in order to create a poll on the Zoom website. So if that's helpful, I can certainly go through that. Some of the challenges that we've experienced, I'll say, is more of an internal reflection of how do we best meet the challenges and needs of our families currently. So internally, we constantly have discussions of what do our families need? Things are changing daily. Some of these things, you know, we have to really pick and parcel what can we control and what do we have no control over in order to think about how we can support, right? So things like, you know, families are struggling with behavior, families are struggling with sleep schedules. We may not be able to change some of the daily changes in their lives, but you know, everyone needs to try to function as a family. Everyone needs to sleep at night. So those are some things that we can provide support in. It's been challenging keeping up with changing guidelines and policies and thinking through what feels relevant to share with families and what feels relevant maybe for us just to keep in the back of our mind when we're receiving helpline calls and be able to guide families. So trying to make those distinguished choices. It's been difficult to plan ahead, right? It's been difficult to not feel reactionary to what's been happening. And, you know, and I think sometimes the solution to that is do our best to plan and move forward. I think some things have been happening recently is we try to plan out our fall workshops and a lot of it is based on special education or services and having dates be moved around and thinking through should we keep on going or should we move the dates? But you know, at this point we have to do our best, schedule something and hopefully the parents who need it will come and really just try to be understanding that we have to all be flexible at this point. Another challenge we've observed is just family access to resources. So being cognizant of when we do have presentations that, you know, maybe not everyone's gonna be accessing through the computer, something that they may be accessing it through the phone, and something that we do prior to our presentations is sharing handouts, either through PowerPoint or links. And so just being aware of when we're thinking about engaging families in a presentation, that's gonna look very differently if they're accessing it through the computer, through the phone. Another thing that we've noticed is technical knowledge. So some families may feel uncomfortable utilizing Zoom, right? So they might feel more comfortable using Facebook or Instagram because that's a technology they may use more in their everyday life. So just trying to be creative in how we present our information and what platforms we use. And the last piece is just staff needs. Just being cognizant that we ourselves are going through a parallel process as families. You know, a lot of our staff have, you know, lost family members, or they themselves are going through remote learning or blended learning. And so just that parallel experience that we ourselves are going through. I also included a couple of resources here if, you know, people are interested in online facilitation skills, or you know, tips and tricks on hosting a meeting online. Training for Change is a great nonprofit. They provide both free as well as paid workshops. They're both in English and Spanish. I will say they fill up really quickly. So if you're interested, I would either keep on checking their webpage often, or sign up for their emails. There's also a webinar coming up on Zoom called Amplifying Your Message Using Social Media to Support Your Mission. I think it's next Thursday, or the Thursday after. If you guys are interested, I can include those links after the chat. I just wanted to share our impact. You know, we do continue to be a practical resource for families. I think we've also just had to be cognizant of being an emotional support for families. You know, of course, within the lines of what our bounds of what we can do, but just being more mindful of that, and just some stories that we've heard from families during these times that have reiterated, you know, how great it feels when we are able to be a support to families. Okay, and I mentioned I'd share some data points with you guys. These are from March to June, what it looked like between 2019 and 2020. If you look at our Facebook and Instagram Live, we did none last year, and then this year we did 23 in English and 7 in Spanish. Our webinars and workshops, we did 3 in 2019 and 51 in 2020, including partners with the DOE and CUNY. We also have a parent support group that we have moved to be weekly. And we've also added a Spanish support group that's monthly. We also moved our Indoors for Autism to virtual, which we actually increased our participation. I think that geographic barrier may have been a help. One thing that we noticed was for our helpline, we saw a decrease in calls. If we're looking at March to June, I think a lot of people are in survival mode, and you know, may not have been at a place to think about resources, but we are seeing an uptick with school reopening. More families are calling us again. And these are our tip sheets, so just an increase. We also put out a lot more tip sheets in 2020. This is our website. And this was in English, and this one is in Spanish, our Include website and our Incluye website. So this is just helpful in thinking through what our family needs, what are people, you know, utilizing when we look at these data points. And I'll give a shout out to our operations and communications team. They're really helpful with kind of giving us and sharing out this data with us. These are kind of our top viewed webinars and workshops, and these are our top viewed Facebook Live and Instagram topics. And I'll share, these are our top viewed English tip sheets that are available on our website, and our top viewed Spanish tip sheets on our website. And as I mentioned, we have a weekly email, and our Spanish email comes out monthly, I believe. So this is our Navigator and then Navigador. All right. and if this is helpful for you guys, I've just included here our helpline number. I can also include this in the chat if it's helpful. And then what I'm gonna do is just exit this and go to the Zoom account and just kind of share with you guys. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to set up a poll, under the webinar section, you scroll down and you see these different tabs you can click. And polls and surveys, one of them. This is our poll that we use at our workshops that replaces our paper poll. And I'll just show edit really quick. So this is the questions we ask. We have that one. And then these are obviously the options you could input. And then number 2, and then obviously our number 3. I'm sorry I can't show you in the actual Zoom itself, but one thing is it's pretty intuitive. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing now and just kind of go over it. So it's pretty intuitive once you actually are on Zoom. It just has a poll button and you can click on it and the polls come up and people can answer, and then you could share the results if you like, and there you have it.
Great, thank you so much, Stephanie. That was wonderful. We really appreciate you sharing your presentation with us. Just so all the local health departments know, I will be sending out a thank you for attending the webinar email, and I'll list all of the helplines and links that Stephanie showed us. And does anyone, we can open the floor to questions for Stephanie. We have time for that. So feel free to unmute yourself or send a message to the chat box. All right, I see a question. Stephanie, could you elaborate on Indoors for Autism, what that is? Sorry, you need to unmute yourself.
I apologize, I had a siren in the back, I remembered. Our Indoors for Autism event is our annual event where we pull together resources from all different types of service providers. We may have related services. We could have summer camps. We also have, different activities for children with special needs. And so we invite families to come and join and learn and hopefully build their repertoire of things that are available to them in the city. So this year, it was online. And so this year, I think we tried to make the activities more engaging because we understood families were going to be in the home, and there weren't a lot of activities at that point available for families to go out and do because New York City was on lockdown pretty much. And so we wanted to be really creative and not only provide resources, provide some fun activities for kids to join in on. So I think this year will be virtual again. So we might have something more similar to that than we would have typically had at our in-person Indoors for Autism.
Thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to ask. And if you have questions pertaining to any of the regional support centers, Einstein, Westchester, or Rochester, you can ask those as well. Anything about the Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs project, we can open up the floor to any and all questions at this time.
So I just dropped, thank you, Rachel, for sending it out. In case anyone just wants to take a look now, I dropped the 2 links that I put in the presentation. And I'll go ahead and just drop our helpline number. But of course, thank you, Rachel, for sending that out as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those links. I'm sure they'll be helpful. And this is, even though you include New York City is based in New York City, it's really great how it's relevant to all of the counties across New York State. Now that we've gone virtual, great, we could utilize you all more. So.
Yes, and I included our calendar because, as Rachel mentioned, we're virtual. So if there's any workshops that you feel like would be helpful to share, you're more than welcome to. And if our type of organization is a resource you think would be beneficial to your local health departments, I'll also put in here a PDF of our, we have similar organizations throughout the state, and I will share just a quick kind of a PDF of all the different types of organizations throughout the state who you might be able to reach out to.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Really appreciate it. So now we're going to have a brainstorming session. And I'll just pull up the slide one more time. So just, oh, we have a chat box. Oh, yes. Thank you for joining us, Stephanie. So I just wanted to know, or I didn't want to know. Well, I do want to know, but I want to open it up to everyone. So we already asked if you had questions for Include in New York, but feel free to jump in at any time with that. And now it is your opportunity to talk with us. The regional support centers are really here to hear about your needs and experiences and how we can best help you with technical assistance. And right now, if you want to share anything with local health departments, so an experience you had working with a family over the past couple months, a lesson you learned, a resource you used, it's a great time to connect with the local health department that you normally wouldn't be able to connect with, because we have about 70 participants right now, so it would be great to share what you've learned and what you've experienced over this public health crisis. So I know it's a little intimidating to speak up over Zoom, but I'm going to mute myself now, and whoever wants to take the floor, please go ahead.
I like to bring something out of it's okay. There has been, since the school year sporadically is opening, whatever they can, I'm wondering what families are encountering, because a lot of the younger families with young preschool and younger children that go to voluntary schools, not necessarily the DOE schools, but those others, there are problems. There are problems where either the classes are smaller or those entities are concerned about their future, whether they're going to be able to provide those services and what options these families are going to have. I'm hearing a lot more that the schools they attended a year ago or this past semester are different this year. They're limiting the number of children. They're not, it's becoming very cumbersome for the families to navigate that. And I'm wondering, between that and the health crisis, which is all connected with with schools and the reopening, or trying to reopen, at least here in New York City, I'd like to know whether anyone has experienced that or what people have heard from those families, because things have changed from a year ago. And I'm just wondering the impact of that going forward.
Hi, this is Carrie in Saratoga County. Can you hear me?
Carrie, it's very muffled.
Okay, let me get closer. Does that help? No?
Oh, I think that's a little better, yes.
Okay. If not, I'll type it in the chat. But up here, up in Saratoga County, we're the capital region. Our issue.
Sorry, Carrie, it's pretty muffled. Sorry, do you want to try again, or would you like to write it in the chat box? Okay, Carrie's going to write it in the chat box. Thank you, Carrie. Would anyone else like to comment or respond? Thank you, William, for speaking up.
Perhaps it's a little early in the year yet, but in terms of the school year, but I'm really concerned from what I'm hearing. And it's really going to be a challenge for families to navigate not just their child's preschool or school age child with special needs, but the healthcare needs are all combined with this. There's a lot of concerns over the environment and where these children are going into. And there is, and the issue of providing the right protective supports, the mask, all that stuff, which we know our children, particularly children with special needs, have a lot of difficulty in maintaining. So the question I really have is, it's really, as we move forward, the family forums and things are going to pop up, whether it's on specific healthcare needs or not, there's going to be a cloud, a little bit of a combination going on with these families as we navigate the school year. So the question I have is, has anyone experienced that, and or any comments from your families or anything that in your particular area or counties are you doing to deal with that?
Would you like to hear the perspective of a family? So it's all of what you said. It's been very challenging and very difficult. My son started in-person services 2 days a week. He does go to a specialized program. The program, the kids are down to 30% in person. They, you know, a lot of the kids in my son's school have medical issues, as he does as well. So I'm trying to see if I can cover some of the services that are being provided, that are not being provided in the school outside. But I'm even having challenges with that because a lot of the places are not offering in-person services due to, you know, all the issues that are happening. So I guess the biggest fear of a parent is once a child gains a skill, for them to lose that skill, the regression. That is the biggest fear because it takes so long for them to be able to gain that skill. So I know that I'm one in a lot of parents that are in fear of this, and we don't have a lot of choices. We don't have a lot of choices. Right now, I don't have a bus para, has not been provided. He has to go to school with a bus para. So I am transporting him to school and picking him up. And that sometimes he does miss some of the sessions because I need to go in a little earlier to pick him up. So I know a lot other parents are having the same issues. Because it's only 2 days a week. So some bus paras don't want to work 2 days a week. They want to work the whole week. So the Department of Education hasn't commented on that yet. So these are some of the issues that are coming up, and this is only the first week of in-person service. So I'm sure that a lot of other things are going to be coming up.
Thank you. I want to hear that because I'm hearing it in a number of places. So you just confirmed what I've been hearing. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, Miriam's experience is a common one. We have seen an increase in calls in New York City around the opening of school. The parents are extremely frustrated. They feel like they're not getting enough information. There's nobody to reach out to. As Stephanie said, you know, the parents want people to answer phones and give them a response when they call. And it's just, it's very complicated because were you hearing me? Okay. Because the school schedule has changed. So as Miriam's saying is, you know, they can't plan their childcare, and if they have a para, if they need transportation, it's really overwhelming. And so you add to that, some of the families are having financial stress, they're having emotional stress, they're having food insecurity. I mean, it's just a compounded situation. So by the time they call us, they're already traumatized three times over. So they just want somebody to fix it. And if you don't have a fast answer, and of course, each family situation is you know, going to be different in its own way, have its own complications. And it's just, you know, we want to respond, but you know, some of it is just difficult. And then when you have the language barriers, you know, in my case, they took my assistant who speaks Spanish to respond to the COVID activation. So it's just me trying to respond. You know, it's just, everybody's feeling stretched right now. So I think going forward, and I think we're all saying the ramifications of this are really have not been seen yet. I know that these families are going to have an emotional toll that will last for a long time. Some of these parents have lost their jobs. I mean, it's just very complicated. So we really have to stay on top of the COVID resources. Our agency is really doing a good job about putting out tip sheets and that kind of thing. So we direct families to do online research as well as follow up with our organization.
All right, thank you so much. Just so everyone knows who spoke, William Lopez is a project consultant for the Einstein RSC, Miriam Franco is a family liaison for the Einstein RSC, and Esther was the New York City Local Health Department. So thank you everyone who spoke. I'm just gonna quickly, we have 3 more minutes, get to the chat box comments. So I know Carrie, I believe you said Saratoga was where you're from. And you say that the biggest issue is that businesses are reopened and children have to remain virtual and don't have adults to facilitate it. BEI, does anyone, Carrie or someone else could say what BEI is for the group?
It's the Bureau of Early Intervention.
Okay, great. Just always want to learn to spell out all the acronyms because there's so many. The Bureau of Early Intervention just sent a reopening guidance yesterday. So thank you for that, Carrie. Catherine shared Dutchess County has a website. Okay, so great sharing resources. Thank you, Catherine, sharing Dutchess County's website, thinkdifferently.net, along with the contact, okay. I'm going to save all the chat comments and format that into the thank you email so we can all share the resources again. So Cheryl Geiler from the New York State Department of Health, sharing an experience. Thank you for that. Barbara Falkman, she has COVID-19 resources she can share. So that would be great, Barbara. We can keep in touch about that and I can include that in my thank you email. All right. Does anyone have any final comments or questions before we wrap up? It's almost 2 o'clock. All right, so I want to thank all the local health departments for attending the first local health department webinar. I want to thank Marcel and Mark, our family liaisons, for speaking today. Stephanie Tong from Include New York City, who I will include all of the links and resources she shared with us today. After this webinar, you will receive a thank you email with all the resources, and also we request that you fill out a evaluation about this webinar so we can improve for future webinars. So you'll receive a big email from me either at the end of the day or next week, and thank you again for coming. We really appreciate your attendance.